Hey everyone, it is Bren here again from Big Geeky Blog, and it is Teen Wolf Thursday recap here on our YouTube channel where I recap the most recent episode of Teen Wolf, and it is episode 12, and I'm excited to recap this episode. But before I do, I kind of wanted to share something that was expressed in my very first recap with the admission form from Icon House that had a quote by Henry David Thoreau. I'm horrible with names, but he's a classic American author and is known for his works like Civil Disobedience. I got this lovely tidbit from my cousin, who is also a writer for Big Geeky Blog, and she shared with me something about the author is that he was an influential writer for Martin Luther King, and I think it's really cool that they are using quotes. I'm sure it's probably a favorite quote of Jeff Davis or one of the writers, and they incorporated it in the episode. So that was from last episode that I just wanted to share and follow up with a little bit of a tidbit for you. And I'm going to move right along with this week's episode of Teen Wolf. We kick off this episode with Hayden and Deputy Clark as she is being escorted back home by her sister, and Deputy Clark is still in the blue as far as supernatural creatures, as far as what's going on with Hayden, and Hayden's only been dead and alive and resurrected for less than 24 hours. So Deputy Clark is totally out of the loop for everything that's going on and believes by what Hayden is telling her that she had ran off with Liam for a couple of days, while in actuality she was dying. Deputy Clark is eventually going to find out what is going on with Hayden, but it's going to take some time. I think it's going to take some craziness that's going to go on in Beacon Hills with the Beast of Gévaudan and the Hellhound, which I'm sure she'll find out it's Parrish. Speaking of the Beast of Gévaudan, Deputy Clark encounters the Beast of Gévaudan while on a call. Deputy Clark sees the Beast of Gévaudan and now believes there's some supernatural things going on here, but she still doesn't really know what's going on. While Liam has shown up to kind of speak to Hayden after being revealed that she is alive to kind of talk about what's going on. But the Beast of Gévaudan basically makes themselves known and goes after Hayden and Liam with a warning from Deputy Clark to run. So they run through the reserve of Beacon Hills and they come across a cliff that then they have to jump over. And this part here wasn't my favorite part. I thought it was kind of cheesy. It's very slow-mo and downside of this whole scene. But I loved their dynamic and their banter with one another, and we get to see more of what the Beast of Gévaudan looks like. And I'm still on the fence of how they did the Beast. I know that before they have done CGI monsters such as Peter Hell's werewolf in season 1, and then they have since then created prosthetics and have made the monsters out of prosthetics and costumes and things like that. So I don't know what to think about the Beast of Gévaudan. I thought that the Beast of Gévaudan would be a little more scarier. I find him almost he looks like Venom, but a beast. Venom, like Spider-Man Venom, the whole mouth thing. Do you guys see it? Because I'm keeping this on here while I'm talking. But that's what the Beast of Gévaudan looks like. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I'm going to cut right to the Chimera Pack. We see Tracy and Theo in the hospital of Beacon Hills basically tying up loose ends, and she kills one of the officers that was transporting Donovan and her dad, and she kills the man with her venomous claws. So I think Tracy is all about the Chimera Pack. She's going to be the one in the pack to be the most devout to Theo, and I have a feeling she's going to be kind of a problem for Scott and his pack because she's so devoted to Theo. So I kind of like Tracy as kind of a villainess kind of role, but maybe she'll have some redeeming qualities and maybe she'll make it through 5B. Because she didn't quite make it through 5A. But let's see if she does. But judging by how things are going, I feel like Theo's eventually just going to ruin his own pack internally by his own actions. Cut to Scott and Parrish doing some sleuthing of their own, in which Jordan Parrish shares a video of the Beast of Gévaudan breaking out of the utility warehouse, and they go to investigate and try and get some clues. As we see, Scott is still on his own and he is trying his best to kind of solve the crimes in Beacon Hills, and he tries to create his own board of leads and clues. So it's kind of reminiscent of Stiles' board from 3B that we saw with the red string and Lydia in the room. They're trying to find leads and clues to all the different things that are going around Beacon Hills during that time. Moving along, we see Stiles catching his dad looking at the corpse of Donovan in the Beacon Hills morgue at the hospital. They kind of have this heart-to-heart that I really appreciated. I think it was kind of due for a good heart-to-heart with them. Stiles has been holding on to this whole I killed Donovan, I'm a murderer, and it was nice to see the support from his father and for Sheriff Solinsky to kind of get what Melissa had been saying back in 5B about Kira. So it was kind of like the Solinskys were like making peace and kind of coming together and realizing their faults as a unit. And I liked the whole scene altogether. I think it was probably one of my favorite scenes this episode. I love the relationship with Stiles and his father. I enjoyed the growth that they have had. His father telling him to forgive himself. Stiles feels like he lost a piece of himself by the death of Donovan, and Sheriff Solinsky reassures him that it was by self-defense. And to me, it still kind of accidentally killed Donovan. Like, he didn't know if he pulled the latch that the pole would penetrate Donovan's heart. Like, I mean, who would know? So I still feel like it's like an accidental death and self-defense. So it's kind of half and half. But Stiles definitely took it hard as he feels like he is responsible for the death of Donovan. And of course, they have this hug out, this Lindsay hug, which all look amazing. And I like I said, I love this scene. So going back to Theo as he's trying to get his Chimera pack strong and as a strong unit as well, he helps out his Chimera pack by kind of building on their strengths and what's going to help them acclimate to their abilities, but also acclimate to society. So we see this kind of awkward scene where he gives his jumper cables to one of the chimeras to kind of get high off the electricity. Liam has been kind of sneaking around and has caught what Theo is doing after Hayden basically said, Theo saved my life. I think Liam doesn't trust Theo now, and he has a lot of looming questions of his agenda. So he's been kind of keeping tabs on Theo, which makes Theo then feel threatened and will do anything to keep his Chimera pack strong. Speaking of packs, Scott is still trying to rebuild his pack. He is trying to recruit Malia to become part of his pack. He said that she's the only one that he has, which, you know, it's kind of interesting that he feels this strong connection to Malia. I mean, they do have this pact in a sense to her becoming a human. She had been in coyote form for 8 years of her life, and he has now helped her kind of become human and adapt to the world. So I feel like they have that pact already, and I feel like she has that loyalty to Scott despite how she felt in the beginning. But unfortunately, she has her own agenda, and that agenda is to kill her mother, and she says that that's going against Scott's philosophy of the pact, and it's definitely going to cause like a rivet for them. So she doesn't want to help him, knowing that what she's going to do is going to be detrimental to that relationship. Of course, you know, Scott has kind of hinted that he hears 2 heartbeats. So we're thinking, who could it be? And everybody thought it was Theo and Brayden. But we were happy to see that it was just Brayden in the house. They are intimidating and trying to get questions out of a man that has come across the desert wolf, which is Malia's mother. Definitely intrigued to see how it goes. Mason and Liam have to be one of my favorite new duos on Teen Wolf. I love how they kind of play off one another, and especially how Liam is becoming his wingman. Liam is trying to set up Mason with Corey in hopes to get answers about Theo to see what he is up to and what exactly the Chimera Pack's agenda is. Next, we see our favorite Banshee once again in Eichen House, this time in an out-of-body experience. She seems to be in this catatonic, comatose state. She wanders through Eichen House and comes across the bathtub that has been previously seen in 5A with her grandmother and her mother. And this time we see somebody arise from the bathtub. And for a second, I thought it maybe could have been Grandma Martin, but no, it was another Banshee that we are familiar with who made the creepiest, grudgiest crawl up to Lydia Martin, and it was Meredith, who says, "Don't be afraid." Get back to Theo, who is going to have that confrontation with Hayden about Liam. Like I said, he will try to eliminate any kind of problems or things are going to get in his way, and it creates almost this Romeo and Juliet aspect to Hayden and Liam, which he tells Hayden to stay away from Liam. We'll see how long that will last, and it doesn't last very long, as you can tell, because later on in the episode, Hayden goes to Liam trying to find out more of why they're so drawn to one another, because she said everything else feels wrong, but the only thing that feels right basically is Liam embrace and have a kiss, and it's super cute, and everybody's probably happy that Hayden is back on. So we move along once again with Theo, who is trying to build his chimera pack, and he gets Corey to come on board, which leads to Mason finding out that he has been stood up by Corey, and then Liam not too happy because he was trying to get answers from Corey. So it just makes Liam's red flags raise a little more, and he feels like he needs to talk to Scott, but he's not ready to talk to Scott yet. So hopefully that'll be a relationship that's mended very soon, hopefully in the next episode. Speaking of relationships, we do see some mending on the front of Skills, which they do come together to do some investigation to find out exactly what the beast was that was seen on the footage, and they go out to find exactly how the beast is Gévaudan and how they got into the warehouse and exactly what kind of clues they can find. When going through the warehouse, they do find some kind of saying, and I believe, and I'm gonna butcher this, I believe it is in Latin, as Stiles had mentioned. It's Damnatio Memoriae. So I'm curious to know exactly what this means and who they're trying to erase from memory. We do know a little bit that the Beast of Gévaudan, which I have said before in the previous video, was resurrected by the Dread Doctors. So I'm curious to know who exactly was resurrected for the Dread Doctors to then create the Beast of Gévaudan. And I kind of have hunches and clues, and I might share it with you, but I think I'll keep it to myself to see if I'm right. But anyways, going back to the episode, we are brought once again to Icon House with Lydia Martin and Meredith, who are overlooking Lydia Martin's body in its catatonic state. Lydia fears that she'll never be able to wake up and that she'll be stuck in Icon House forever, and Meredith reassures her that she won't be in here forever, that she's going to teach her all her abilities of being a banshee, which makes me really excited. I can't wait for Lydia's one-on-one banshee training. We find out that Theo is also in the hunt for the Beast of Gévaudan and some answers, and crosses paths with Scott and Stiles, in which there's an altercation with the Chimera Pack. We see Scott and Stiles finally mending their relationship, and they share another favorite scene of this episode. Scott draws the middle circle of his tattoo and then instructs Stiles that he is a part of his pact and to write the outer circle of his new pact symbol. And I loved this moment. I think it was well done. I like how they mended the relationship this way, kind of making a pact and having it drawn out. And another thing is I'm glad that they mended it in episode 12. They didn't like draw this out like halfway through the season and then they're like, oh, we're cool now. Because let's face it, Skills is life. Skills is the bromance of Teen Wolf, and without that bromance, Teen Wolf wouldn't be what it is. So I'm so glad they are together. Speaking of togetherness, we see the Yukamaras in the desert, and they are in the hunt for the shapeshifters in hopes to help Kira keep her inner fox at bay. And I'm so glad to see Arden Cho back on the show. So I hope you guys liked this recap of Teen Wolf Thursdays with Big Geeky Blog. Leave comments, subscribe, like, whatever you like to do, share with your friends, listen to it over and over. Stay tuned next Thursday for episode 13's recap.